Coming up on this episode of Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover.
If the amount of excitement we have about Minter and the rest of the staff is real, like if the excitement is met with the results we're thinking, like it might be all worth it. So the optimism couldn't really be higher right now in Baltimore. It's actually really palpable.
Welcome to Good Teams Win, Great Teams Cover. It's our 7th division preview. We are doing the AFC North. Fun division, a lot of big hitters. How are you feeling? Excited for the AFC North preview?
Yeah, it's a one which is, I don't know if the most amount of changes. There's one team that's fully stuck still, but the remaining have made some huge changes, which is not like the AFC North, so it should be fun to delve into that. Obviously, it's just me and you. I think Paul's devastated he can't bring his Mike Tomlin facts anymore. So if he can't bring his facts, he's not going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers. But no, excited because some of these are the favorites, and we'll get into them and see how we really feel about the teams. But it's a fun division again.
Yeah, and you mentioned Mike Tomlin departed after 19 years in Pittsburgh. We will get to the Steelers, but first we will get to another long-time head coach departing. We have Alec, who done us for a Fixing Franchise series earlier in the offseason. Is going to be going through the Baltimore Ravens preview with us. So see how they replace John Harbaugh and how we feel about the 2026 season for the Ravens. So over to me and Alex. All right, that brings us to our guest of the show, Alec, who is a friend of the show, done our Fix Your Franchise series back in March for the Ravens, or March or April, as we previewed free agency, the NFL draft. And we actually, I was watching the video back earlier, smashed it on Vega as a first-round pick. Little spoiler alert for what's to come here. But Alec, how are you doing?
Doing well. That was so chalky. The last 2 years, everyone said we're going to pick Starks. We picked Starks. Everyone thinks that we're going to pick Vega. I will say on draft night, we had Burns, or not Burns. What was Bain?
Ruben Bain. Yeah.
Bain fell down, and Sadiq was still there, so it created quite the conundrum. And we're all like, "Oh, Bain actually did fall. Like, what are we going to do? Are we going to stick to our guns?" And I think with the way the draft played out, with Zion Young available in the second round, it was a great move. But we'll get to the draft later.
Yeah, I totally agree as well. And I remember on draft night thinking the same, like, because Ravens feel like one of them franchises, little like the Eagles, of like basically well-run teams who are like, oh, this value fell to us, let's just take it. And it was a real discussion on our show of like, well, what they're going to do. They're going to go Vega like we all kind of expect, or will it be Bain? I still can't believe Bain. I think he fell all the way to 15.
Right after us, the Bucs were enamored. They thought they were going to get Messidor, and then they were able to get one of the best rushers in the draft potentially. So they were very pleased.
Absolutely, yeah. I'm still surprised by it, and he seems to be shining in training camp as well, as we kind of all expected, because he looks great. But we're not here to talk the Tampa Bay Bucs. We are here to talk the Baltimore Ravens. 2020 season, 8-9, second in the division, missed the playoffs for the first time since 2021. Offense, this is in scoring here, so 11th in scoring, 18th in defensive scoring. And we know how high the bar is in Baltimore because you missed the first playoffs for the first time since 21, and your head coach gets fired. There was no waiting around in Baltimore. How did you think the season went, though, Alec?
It was a disaster of a season. Started off miserably against the Bills with a classic Harbaugh'ian collapse.
Yep.
That's when I started calling for his job, and kind of all solidified for me. And then the year progressed. And similar to, the AL slop in baseball this year, the AFC was so bad.
Yeah.
We were in it. And frankly, if Loop makes that kick and the Ravens go into the playoffs, after watching the playoffs, like they would have been a contender. They could have went all the way to the Super Bowl. Like obviously, the Patriots had their way with us in that home game, but I think the team was better than what they showed that evening, and potentially could have gotten a run on. It was very painful watching those playoffs, but frankly, it was time for a reset. Yeah. And the owner Bisciotti said, if he made the kick, it would be given one more week to
Yeah.
Harbaugh. So it sounded like his mind was made up. And then we kind of proceeded. And I got to tell you, last year was almost worth it in a way if the amount of excitement we have about Minter and the rest of the staff is real. Like if the excitement is met with the results we're thinking, like it might be all worth it. So the optimism couldn't really be higher right now in Baltimore. It's actually really palpable. The first preseason game was on Saturday.
Yeah.
The stadium renovations are complete. They just moved the Unitas and Ray Lewis statues back today, apparently. So like now it's truly like kind of complete.
Yeah.
And I mean the place was electric. There's just so much optimism in the air, and good first showing against the Eagles. So like things are onward and upward.
Love it. I mean, that takes us nicely on to the biggest talking point of the
offseason.
Gone and freshly minted. Long-time head coach John Harbaugh fired. Chargers DC, Jesse Minter replaced him in first head coaching job. Obviously, like you say, the excitement is palpable. He's 2 years as a DC in the NFL with the Chargers. First in points allowed, ninth in points allowed, with, I think, talent that doesn't look like a top 10 defense necessarily in LA for the Chargers. I think could be a big miss for the Chargers themselves. But yeah, you say excitement is palpable, but Jesse Minter, I guess. How are you feeling? The final replacement for Michael McDonald, maybe? I know we talked about him way back.
Yeah, it was a shame to lose Mike, but Jesse really appears to be another cut from the same cloth kind of guy. It wouldn't surprise me if they're both considered, the AFC and NFC respective defensive minds that kind of iterate the defensive meta forward. Everyone talks about how McVay and Shanahan get to go against what do you call it? McDonald, twice a year, and that kind of like iterates the meta very rapidly.
Yeah.
I think we might see that here as well with the AFC contenders. We always seem to find our way against and things of that nature. So really, really excited. He has just this like calculated confidence.
Yeah.
But with not like over the top. Like I think he can accept when he's wrong and listen to feedback and like all that kind of stuff. Like it's a real refreshing tone. And frankly, it's almost burying the lead because Declan Doyle has been incredibly impressive. And every offensive player has spoken so highly about him in ways that like you just can't. It's not coach speak, not player speak. You know what I mean? It's different the way they speak about him.
Yeah, it comes across that way.
Yeah, and I mean, I think he's gone in 60 seconds. If everything goes the way we are praying here in Baltimore, which is a shame, but hopefully he gets a Super Bowl out of it, right? Because it just seems like he's going to be the next up and coming OC guy. Payne, Ben Johnson tree, just everyone has nothing but good things to say, and the mastermind, all this stuff. So I'm really keen to see how this plays out. Lamar's been taking really well to this coaching and wants to be challenged. Everybody's like very excited. Bateman's excited about being finally used in all of the ways, like and not be a sacrificial X on every play. And it seems like maybe some of the returns on the early draft picks are paying off. So it just seems like everything's going forward. They got, I think, a big win when Stefanski was signed on by Atlanta.
Yeah.
Because then he wanted to bring in his O-line coach, which is understandable, but Ledford is really well regarded now, our O-line coach. And we're keen to see how that kind of evolves. Again, with a Banga selection, early returns are positive.
Absolutely. And we've kind of gone a little ahead there. So new offensive play called up on deck. Declan Doyle comes in as OC. I spent time under Penn Johnson, Sean Payton. Expectations of the offense are sky high. I mean, I don't need to say what are they. You've just told me they're sky high. I'm really interested to see how much Lamar Jackson, we've been hearing a lot about like the under center rate might improve under Declan Doyle. Also work with Sean Payton and Ben Johnson. I think we're going to see creativity on the rushing attack as well. That maybe we didn't see quite as much under Greg Roman, especially. So, yeah, you've said it's exciting. The early draft picks as well, or the returns on those draft picks, all seem very positive. So, anything we've missed talking Declan Doyle there? He's also only 30 years old, which...
Yeah, he's the same age as Lamar.
I hadn't even thought about that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Very, very young, but very prepared. You can understand how he got the job, right? Like, even though what he lacks in years of experience, he has in his intentionality every year to get to where he is. And it's clear, everyone knows that he wants to be a head coach. Like, we know that he has even bigger goals.
Yeah.
But I think the big thing I would say about Declan Doyle too is he's actually changing the footedness of Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I don't know if you heard about that. So yeah, he was like a right-footed quarterback, the way he like came out of his drops, and now he's left-footed. There's a lot more like attention to detail to how far back he goes relative to the offensive line. Like the attention to the detail is really high. Cadence is being used at a high rate. And last year, Monken tried to install different cadences and stuff. It was well reported during camp that they were kind of struggling with it and, trying to get that off the ground. It sounds like this year, they only had 3 penalties. Obviously, this was not with the starters, but only 3 penalties. None of them were those kind of penalties in the first preseason game. They were really pleased about that.
Yeah.
And the procedural stuff. Yeah, I mean, I'm keen to see how they handle aggressiveness on 4th down, even though, it's also a head coach decision, but just like the overall staff and how they approach that.
Yeah.
The wide receivers are using all over the formation, and you can kind of see, I'm curious to see how they use tight ends. Like, our tight end room is completely revamped. And we know that like he brought in Smythe to kind of help, facilitate running the offense. And I think he'll be a big part of everything. So I think we'll still have a decent amount of 12, but early returns are showing that 11, I think, is in the play. I think under center is more in play. And yeah, it's very exciting.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, I'm really excited. It's always just great when you get a young OC with like that kind of upbringing, because like you say, even though he is young, a bit like Minter, like you don't stick around coaches like Sean Payton, Ben Johnson, Jim Harbaugh in Minter's case, unless you've got something, regardless of your age. So yeah, I think it's a real exciting time. And one, we're not talking fantasy football, but like I'm really interested in maybe having as much Lamar Jackson as I can get in fantasy this year, because
let me put this out there. First year under Greg Roman, MVP. First year under Monken, MVP.
Ooh.
First year under Declan Doyle.
Interesting. I've not thought of that either.
Yeah, so get your MVP bets in now.
Great angle. We are going to look on the other side of the ball, though. No need to max out on pass rush. The Crosby deal falls through, but Hendrickson comes in. Where's your confidence level with Trey Hendrickson and second year Mike Green in? And we did touch earlier as well, Zion Young, second round draft pick as well.
Yeah. I mean, early returns on Green. We'll see. Preseason's preseason. I know that the defensive coaches gave him a cut up of like how many near sacks he had last year, and how like, you can imagine him getting better. There's been some criticism. So like we had Dr. Rush as our pass rush specialist last year, Chuck Smith, and he's called Dr. Rush. He has a big I don't know, following or whatever in the NFL. But there was also some like negativity that came out recently about him and the way he was teaching the staff. So like potentially, I think there's a couple pass rushers on the team, Mike Green included, maybe, that are excited about the new approach.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's kind of not in this slide but can be talked about is Matty BK's off the pup. He's not fully practicing yet, unless that changed in the last few hours, and I haven't checked in on the last day or two of camp and what happened, but I do think if he's even 75% of what he was pre-injury, that'll be a huge win for this pass rush and the rest of the defensive line pass rush. So we'll see how that plays out. I think also I just have a confidence in the scheme. I think the secondary is going to be better, which will help those effort sacks come through. And I think it's like, it's a cohesive measure that will get us there.
Yeah, and I think, talking about Mike Green, the near misses, well, if the coverage is just that little stickier, the idea is that those obviously near misses turn into straight up hits or straight up sacks. So, yeah, I think there's very much reason for optimism there. And you didn't have to give up a first round pick for this pass rush room. So you get Vega and all of these guys. So
how about
bonus, in my opinion. And finally, O-line overhauled for the better, question mark. Obviously, Linderbaum and Faele depart for free agency. Linderbaum got paid about $1 billion guaranteed, I think it was. John Simpson returns, Vega first-round pick, and Pocic joined to set the tone. So really, the entire interior all switched up there. And I think, again, we've kind of touched on it. I think the Declan Doyle ad joining in with that. You know, we've seen it with the Bears last year with Ben Johnson and Declan Doyle himself. Do you think the O-line is overhauled for the better, though, ultimately?
Yeah, getting Falele out of there is maybe enough by itself. He's kind of a meme. He's already looking pretty bad. Again, Jackson Stark killed. He's definitely a hardball guy. We'll see. It's a shame too because he seems like a fine chap, but like, yeah, just I don't know if he should be playing.
Not necessarily where you want your fine chaps, though.
yeah. He like that was one of the biggest things. Is like he's such an imposing guy, huge guy, but he wasn't like as physical as you would hope.
You're not a killer, yeah.
Yeah, but John Simpson, he brings that tone. He's quite the opposite, right? Also, kind of lost in the shuffle is oh man, now why am I blanking on his name?
Brought Danny Pinter in. I don't know.
Well, not Pinter. I was going to get to him, but the left guard from last year, who was like not as Voorhees. Yeah, thank you. Sorry, I don't know. I was blanking. Yeah, he's not all that either, right? So between him and Falele, even with Linderbaum, I think it's one of those things where he could not like overcompensate for two lackluster guards next to him.
Yeah.
I think Simpson, you know what you have. His biggest issue is penalties. To think at year 10 or 11, whatever the heck it is, that he's going to change, I'm not going to say that, but the speed off the ball, which is a big thing, a big lead for saying, and his intensity, I think, is appreciated and a good floor. And if he's your worst offensive lineman, which could be the case, then you might be in an all right place. Pinter might be the one, and it's frankly, I don't know if Postic's going to be the center. They paid him enough money that you would think that would be the case, and he has a little bit of a pedigree. I remember when he was pretty good at the Browns a few years back, but the order of entry has not been positive for him. And I know he's still coming back from that injury. Yeah, he was playing with like the third string, so there's a little bit of like pessimism that he might not be it, at least not right away. Pinter was a guy kind of running away with it early in camp, but in the first preseason game, Gwynn had a good showing. So like, we'll see. He's the guy that came from the Falcons with Ledford. So it's really a mystery at this point, like what the center is going to be. And I think the idea is with Vanga there, and I mean he's everything that's been advertised. He all the highlights were coming out from the first game. He's definitely as advertised, and he even said in this post-game interview the hell was easier than he expected, easier than practice. So like
that's so good.
I can imagine how it's easier than practice because going against the ones, he's like an undenied starter. But at the same time, just kind of a funny guy. Definite mentality there, and also I just think like the coaching will be there. Unfortunately, when Joe D passed away suddenly, they were left in a scramble to find an offensive line coach, and he was kind of a legend in this town for turning offensive line play around and getting the best out of guys, including even Falele, who had a much better season, a year prior, even though he was still, had some of those same shortcomings. He was like at least he was compensating with other parts of his play. Yeah. So like, I definitely feel like the offensive line should be better, and also potentially with scheme as well.
Absolutely, yeah. And I do think, talking the penalties of John Simpson, I'm not sure how the Bears fared from one year to the next, but like, I know Ben Johnson, and again, I'm going to assign this value to Declan Doyle because I think they're similar characters of like, that will get ironed out by mid-season, if not already. You already mentioned the lack of procedural penalties week one preseason. And I think that's something that we should expect to either be high standard going into week one or certainly by mid-season. I think that will be something that's not an issue come mid-season. I'm speculating, but you just feel that kind of guy who's going to be so driven and he won't accept BS penalties ultimately. Either shape up or ship out, I think it might well be. So
he's a tough cookie, but I kind of like that about him.
Absolutely, yeah. And we just went with O-line overhaul for the free agency part here because it felt like the Ravens, as is often the case, done a lot in free agency. So we mentioned Trey Hendrickson, John Simpson in, Jalen Hawkins at safety. One I really always love seeing Calais Campbell do one more year. It feels like he does one more year every year. this might be his final year finally. But any issues about Madubuike, having Calais Campbell on that line as well, I think just gives you such a solid rock of a floor of leadership, along with good play as well. But he's such a leader. And then outgoing Ty Linderbaum mentioned Isaiah Likely to New York, another Harbaugh guy, Draymond Jones, and Charlie Kohler. I know I was sad by, I presume you as well. I kind of liked him when we talked free agency last time around. Ends up in LA, where I think he's going to be a great fit for that Chargers offense. But any names here we haven't touched on that came in or went out that you think are going to be, nice additions or, misses?
I think Jalen Hawkins is a great addition because the plan last year was just miserable. And they had to go and trade for Alohi Gilman mid-season to fix it. Everyone knew that we needed another safety so that Kyle could play in the boxes of the big nickel. And, we just didn't have the guy. Now we have Hawkins. There's understudies as well that are playing quite well in camp. So, like, even the 4th-string guy, I think, could come in and play some safety and contribute on special teams and all that good stuff. So, like, the safety room feels a lot more solid than it did a year ago. Calais is like a cherry on top. The defensive line, though, is really old and really weird. We're about to get to the draft pick selection, but right now there's 7 of them, and typically we carry 5. Actually, you could even say there's 8. So, like, it's a really, really full room. And if they could go with what might be their best day one options, they might have to have a complete overhaul. Like, if you worry about Madubuike's health, it could be believable that Travis Jones is the only one left standing next year. And I don't think they want to do that. So everyone in Ravens camp, that's paying attention is really keen to see how they try to shake out this defensive line. Do they carry a 6-1, which is abnormal? New coaching staff, new philosophy maybe. But there are also, like, plenty of people in the secondary, plenty of corners that they're going to want to try to keep. That's going to be another really tough cut down day decision. And it wouldn't surprise me at this point if a trade's made. Either of one of these depth defensive line guys. I thought Broderick Washington was going to get cut, as we talked about in our Fixing the Franchise series. They've renegotiated his contract, so he costs less money now, but he still costs money. He didn't have
a roster spot.
Yeah, that he didn't have to necessarily cost. So, we'll see. We'll see what they end up doing with him. Let's see. Anyone else? I will note we lost our punter, and he was an All-Pro, punter or like All Pro Bowler or whatever last year. So that's an impact. They're the holder. That's like something that's usually underlooked, maybe by other franchises, but we care about is like, he's a holder and that impacts the kicking game. So we'll see how he does. He was pretty good in Michigan State, so we're hopeful that the new rookie will be all right. But yeah, I guess that's about it.
Cool, and we will get onto those new rookies now. I'm not going to list them all because there's 50, but Vega, the highlight piece. Jacoby Lane has been shining in camp, and then Matthew Hibner seemed to be making some plays come preseason. And again, I feel like I'm just talking fantasy football here, but these are the guys that have stood out to me on my browsing. Adam Randall at running back as well, a little big guy. I think he's over 6'2", 6'3". He looks like an imposing guy. I'm not sure his exact build, but if Derrick Henry's coming out and Randall's going to run at you instead, that doesn't seem like you take it, but it doesn't seem like the nicest deal in the world. You'd rather try and flatten Keaton Mitchell, but you're not able to catch him, I guess. Who's standing out of the draft class to you? I didn't mention Zion Young there really either. So
yeah, everyone's excited about Zion Young now that they're finally in pads because he was really being quite physical, and he's one of those guys. Once they get the pads on, you get excited. He plays a tough position though, right? So I think it's going to be a bit of I think there'll be some growing pains and a learning curve as any edge has in their youth, but. I think it's okay because he's going to be the 4th guy that they're kind of calling upon in that group, and they have some pretty good solid players there. Jacoby Lane, dude, it's like kind of weird. We've always been trying to find a later round wide receiver or any wide receiver, frankly, and that's been kind of changing over the last few years. With I think Bateman's been better than people think, and it's just been a lot of injuries. But Flowers has been undeniable. He got his contract. So that's good. Lane, dude, it's one of those weird things where I didn't really study him too much going into the draft. We picked him. I watched his film, and I was like, I can see why they would want him, and if they can harness this, it could be really something. And he's just mossing everybody in camp. It's like
It's
stupid.
wild.
It's stupid. And like there's not been a buzz about a player like this in a long, long time. Honestly, since Zay Flowers. I remember when Zay, but he was a first round pick, so it was like different. But I remember when I saw Zay, I texted the guys, and I was like, dude, like this guy's different than anyone else on the team. Like he's really good. And he had a good rookie season. Lane's been that guy. Surratt, I don't know. We'll see what happens with him. And frankly, Hibner and Cuevas, I was kind of ticked when they picked Hibner because I did, a lot of work on the tight end class, and I didn't even study him. I studied his running mate, RJ Maryland. So like, I saw like 20 some prospects. I know it was a deep tight end class, but I saw like 20 some prospects and he wasn't one of them. So I was like a little ticked at first. I watched his film and I was like, okay, he not bad, but like I still was a little, perturbed because he wasn't one of my guys. Like I would have preferred a Joe Lee. Yeah. I know Trig got undrafted, so there's definitely major character concerns there, but or a Trig, at the time. But Cuevas, I did study, he was like a home kind of guy, lunch pail kind of tight end. So I could see how this room's going to fill out. Typically the second tight end is the one that is good for the Ravens. So like, Cuevas should be the chosen one based on that, but it really does feel like Hibner would be the better traits and like particularly from a fantasy perspective. And like you said with Randall, he was the owner's pick if you didn't know that. So the owner got a draft pick and he picked Randall, and he thinks they're going to be a year early on him. Everyone's going to be talking about him soon. And yeah. So like he's a converted wide receiver, and he has that bigger build like you're talking about. He's been kind of making some plays in camp as well, so he could be good. And I think the last one I want to really point out is Benny. So I was talking about that defensive tackle situation. Yeah. Benny was high on our draft board. I always joke when we do the draft night with a couple of the guys, like by the 5th round, we keep saying the same guys we want to draft. And like they for whatever reason aren't picked, and there's always something wrong with them. Right. So it's like, I always joke, like, wait, we don't have to even do this. Like we are going to keep saying the same guys we want to pick until they're no longer on the board. And then we picked Benny with the second to last pick of ours, and we're kind of ecstatic. Right. So, he's frankly, after some of the picks that they made, I was like kind of losing my mind a bit after they started off so strong. I was like the third day they're like off to their shenanigans as far as I was concerned. And I was like, finally, they picked the guy that I wanted them to pick.
Nice.
So Benny's, we'll see how he plays out. Nothing too major. Peoples from last year has been sparking more. And then, dude, Bernstein's going to get cut. He's like already like 26. He's a 26-year-old guard. I have no idea why he was there. He didn't play in the first preseason game. Like, I don't know.
That doesn't sound like a great start to life, though, does it? If you're not making a preseason game,
I'm still stunned that they picked him. Like, I remember when he was picked, I was like, really? There's no one else? Like, I don't know. Whenever you're picking a 26-year-old offensive lineman, like, I don't know.
I'm just thinking of that meme where the guy gets drafted himself, and he's like, "What, me?" That's how I'm imagining being seen in his house. It's like, me to the Ravens. Oh, okay, I'll show up. I don't know if they want me to play in the preseason, but I'll go. Sure.
I feel bad speaking so negative, but I don't see how he makes the team with how everyone else is playing, where he is and his age and all that stuff. Like, I don't know. Could have probably been spent somewhere else.
It certainly sounds like it, yeah. Weird one, though. Like you say, I'm not aware of the player, but yeah, 26-year-old guard who's not getting suited for the preseason. It doesn't sound like it's a path to success. I can recall.
I imagine he was hurt. There's no other explanation for why he didn't play in the preseason, but like it's kind of undisclosed or whatever. So anyways, we'll see.
Let's hope he's dinged up. And getting away from the preseason into the importance of the regular season. Future odds, win total, and to make the playoffs. So the Ravens, I think, have the joint highest over win total in the NFL. The Rams might have gone over now, actually, but 11.5. The over is 11-10, so just odds against. Sorry, Alec, this is British pricing. Under's 5-7, so they're saying the expectation is 11 wins ultimately. How do you see the season going?
Yeah, it could be really good. I looked at the schedule and like I was like, 14-3, 15-2 are in play, like, which is obviously obnoxious and like unlikely. But like I was just looking at it, I was like, I think they can win these games. Like, I mean, the team, like I said, there's a lot of optimism in the air. I think there's a lot of confidence that they can take care of the business and play quite well. So I think 11 wins is 100% in the range of outcomes. 11.5 is tough. It's just like
it is.
It's hard to get 12 wins in the NFL. Only a couple teams ever do it each year. But I could definitely see the Ravens being one of them. So I wouldn't bet it either way, frankly. But if I had to, I would take the 11.5 because, like, obviously injury can crater that. Like, it's so volatile. But I would take the 11.5 if I had to, and then
make the playoffs 1 to 4, so minus 400. So the book is saying you're making the playoffs basically, plus 300 to miss out on the playoffs. If we're going over 11.5, then that's making the playoffs berth, right?
You're making the playoffs, yeah.
Yeah, I have them 13-4 again, but that includes sweeping the Steelers and sweeping the Browns. Just I think they're a lot better than them both. The chances are they'll probably lose one of those games because that's just the way the AFC North is. And like you say, you never quite know what you're going to get any given Sunday. You know.
Have you done the Browns one yet?
No. Well, I did, but it didn't save. So I just quickly done the Ravens before we recorded. I think I had the Browns with like 3 wins, because. You lose the best pass rusher in football, and you have no quarterback. So
yeah, I do think the Browns are like sneaky good. Like I could see them being more competitive than you think, and obviously, if the QB situation is just even passable, I think they could fall backwards into a few more wins than they want, so they can't actually get their better quarterback. I don't.
That'd be so Cleveland, yeah.
I don't want them to do that because, like, I want them to get their quarterback. I want them to be a real team. Like, Cleveland deserves that.
They do.
But I also would find it very Cleveland if they do like actually over succeed.
I think Cleveland
Uncle
deserve
Monk.
it. Cleveland ownership, not so much. It's a tough line, and
I've
had this discussion. We had Derek. I was on Derek's show. Derek likes sports. When the lines got released, and he had the same thing of going. He was over on the Browns. I think 5.5 or 6.5. And it's like, my problem is they went under that, and they had the best pass rush season of all time and the defensive rookie of the year. I don't know if any of that, and now they don't have Myles Garrett. It's like, if the offense is better, then I think they'll get there, because I love what they've done in the draft last couple of years, but it just keeps coming back to that. If the offense is 32nd in the league, or the quarterback play is, I just find it so hard to.
And it's just hard in the division. Like, you might get 6 L's, and it's not even really your fault. Like, it's just like the teams are pretty good ahead of you. So,
and I've gone back to it a lot. And I'll probably mention it later in our preview here when we talk Browns. But the Todd Monken missing the staff NFL head coaching interview, photo shoot, because he was getting a haircut for the photo shoot. I just feel like he's almost cursed to go 1 year and be fired, and that's going to be the abiding memory of Todd Monken's head coaching career.
I know,
because picture of him talking about it, he looked like this sad old man, being like. I went to get a haircut for the photo shoot, and they'd done the photo without me. And I'm just like, oh, Todd, you deserve better than this, buddy. But I don't know it's going to get better because you're in Cleveland. But, there probably wasn't a billion calls for, Todd Monken to get a head coaching job at his age. And, it's a hard life. But anyway, we'll go on to bigger and better things because we're talking about the Ravens. And we have the division odds, 10-11, just odds on to win the division. Conference 5-1, Super Bowl 11-1. I think they're 4 favorites behind the Rams, Seahawks, the Bills, and I think the Ravens are tied with the Bills. Which of these stand out, if any?
I think the division's like, I get why it's like 50-50. I don't know. I don't think I like any of the bets, frankly. Even though I like them as a Super Bowl odds. I don't know. I always talk with my buddy, like, is it better just to try to take the money lines and like do that? Like, you're not going to get to 11-1, but at least you're not like holding up your capital for all that time.
Exactly.
And like, you get out, you get optionality.
Absolutely.
So like, I don't love any of them, but I do think, I think the division might be your best one, even though I think Cincinnati could be interesting this year, just because like they might score 50 points. That's been their strategy for years, but this time it might work out for them.
Yeah, I do think it is kind of a 2-horse race. I don't think I'm often wrong about the Steelers, to be fair, and I often underrate the Steelers, but I just don't think they've got enough to really push. But the Bengals I do sneaky like. Again, we'll get to the Bengals in the rest of the preview, but. Yeah, I think it's almost a 2-horse race between the Ravens and the Bengals. And my one kind of lean against the Ravens in the postseason is just first-time head coach. It's my same slight issue with the Bills as well. Like, it's not really an issue because I think they're going to make the postseason. But just in those highest moments.
I know. It's. I mean, the quote's the best when the best is needed. So like, all right, man, deliver.
Let's go see it. Yeah, exactly.
It's going to be definitely really interesting. But he does have a cool confidence about him. So I hope it all plays out well. And X's and O's, Jimmy's and Joe's. Like, I think it's also a time for those players to step up. One of the crazy stats about Lamar Jackson's postseason career is he has had 3 defensive turnovers, for him. Like, the defense has gotten 3 turnovers for him in all this time. And it's like 28 and 19 for the Bills or for the Chiefs and Bills respectively.
Yeah.
And it's just like one of those things where it's like, yeah, we could like maybe help him out some.
Yeah, not just be this. It's always like, Lamar's got to get this monkey off his back. It's like, well, or like you say, the defense could maybe just come up with 1 or 2 turnovers when it really matters.
Yeah, it could be
rather than just pinning everything on the QB.
Yeah, and I mean that's one thing Minter's already talked about. He thinks they can get a pick a game. That's what he wants. That's his expectation.
Well, that's like Aaron Glenn in New York. He's going for a pick a career as a head coach. He's still trying to get that one, but as soon as they get that one, they'll be rolling. So
yeah, right. They come in bunches. But
I'm much more confident Jesse Minter than the Jets doing so.
Yeah, so we'll see. But yeah, that's a good point though. I mean, frankly, we haven't actually seen these coaches do it. It's going to be a big part of it. How they bounce back from adversity. When we did a little series with my buddy from Huddled Up Films, kind of talking about like things we want to see out of Minter that are like underappreciated, and it's like working the refs, like to get calls, like when, something's happening in the game. And I was like, oh yeah, that's a good one. Like how he uses his challenges, how he goes 4th down, like all that kind of stuff is like we'll have to wait and see because he's never had to do it before, and it's easier said than done, right? So
and even the best coaches struggle with some of those things, like Andy Reid's clock management, Sean McVay's clock management at times. Like, you think, how have you not got somebody in your ear who will just do this one part for you? Because, you're one of the best in the NFL and you fail on it so often.
It blows my mind.
Kind of inexcusable, yeah. Just surrender that part of your job.
The teams don't have a guy. Yeah, that's just like all about game time logistics. I would be that guy because I really fancy it.
Yeah. Well, we'll send them this in, see if Jesse gets in touch. Fingers crossed, he should do. Alec, thank you for previewing the Ravens with us, though. Any shout out of where to find you or anything coming up?
Yeah, Pulianas.com is where I post, even though I have been a little inactive for the last few months. I have a lot of things going on, but I do post there from time to time. But you can find me most of the time on the Huddled Up Films channel with my buddy Jason. It's his channel, but I do appear a decent amount on there. Like I said, we have the Minter series and his Wednesday night streams. He's doing a new stream this year on Fridays with Coach DC, who's really well regarded in this community and also the Lions community. And that's been just fantastic seeing those two guys chop it up. So if you're interested in Raven stuff, I highly recommend that channel.
Awesome. We will check it out. And we're going to get to the rest of the AFC North right now with me, Joe, and Paul. Thanks to Alec again there for the Ravens talk. Very confident, very excited for the season ahead. And we are going to jump into Cincinnati Bengals. So coming off a 6-11 season, 3rd in the AFC North, playoffs missed for 3rd year in a row under Zach Taylor. Offense in scoring 12th and defense beat there in bright red, 30th in scoring. Kind of tells a tale of what was needed for the season to come. Joe, 2025 season for the Bengals. 6-11, I think it kind of tells its own story. Defense in 30th. What were your takeaways?
Well, I think the biggest news is, another injury-filled season for Joe Burrow. I think there was these. Always we talked about the Bengals always start 0-2. Always start 0-2 with Burrows and Zach Taylor and all of this. And they finally went 2-0. But what happened? Turf toe. And Burrows was out, I think it was like 10 weeks he was out because he was a fairly serious turf toe. Then he comes back, he gets shut out one game. Obviously, they have Joe Flacco playing games. It wasn't ideal. So, they started off 2-0, and you think, during that game, it's like this could actually be a kind of Bengals kind of year. And then they went, I think it got to 8-3. Another 1-2 against Dolphins, the Cardinals near the end to finish 6-11. But it was really a failure season just with Joe Burrow again. It felt like he finally got through an off season where he was fairly fit. He had a 4-1, and we were hoping that we would see the Joe Burrow. I wouldn't say of old, but a full season of Joe Burrow, which it feels like the last time we had a fit Joe Burrow. They got to the Super Bowl. So it was disappointing for him and obviously the team with the turf toe, and especially with how that team was structured. It felt like it was going to be an offense powerhouse. But unfortunately, they even got that with Joe Flacco, which is the crazy thing. But like you said, that defense was just putrid, and those reasons why people got fired. And surprised that people stayed. But I'm guessing it's the Bengals don't like firing anyone who's still got years on their contract, their head coach.
Yeah, not a fan of paying anybody. So I'll agree completely all with that. Joe Burrow went 5-3, so you look at them going 6-11. So otherwise, that's 1-8. So yeah, it does really feel like if Joe Burrow's fit and healthy, you're probably looking at a playoff team. If not, you're looking at 6-11 and third in the division and never making the playoffs again. Let's jump into the 2026 headline. So and start out with a big one. I don't think any of us see coming. We talk about the Bengals not wanting to spend or pay up for anything. Well, Sexy Dexy takes a D to the skyline. Get a bit of chilly references in there. Since he gave the 10th pick to get a beast at DT, can Dex make the defense flex? It's really the big question, Joe.
Yeah, I like this one. I think it was, like you mentioned, just before the draft. It was a 10th pick. When you looked about where they were sat in the draft and what kind of player they could have got, it feels like Sexy Dex is going to come in straight away and make a massive difference. It was clear that they needed an upgrade on that defensive line. They've had injuries. We'll talk about some players leaving and them not paying. But getting that kind of superstar defensive player who can make a difference. And, Joe Burrow is not going to stay Joe Burrow forever. You've got Jamar Chase, you've got T. Higgins who you paid. So eventually you've got to, something's got to happen because it was just said in the 20. That's the third year that they've missed the playoffs. It feels crazy when you think about the Joe Burrow-led Bengals that they've not been to the playoffs in the last 3 years compared to where they were before that. Yeah. So it feels like it's now or never, especially for Zach Taylor. So taking big swings on a player like, Dexter Lawrence upgrades it completely. And like I said, that 10th pick, they've made picks on the line, and it's felt like they've never really hit any draft picks they've got, especially on the edge. They took Shamar Stewart last year, but obviously he held out for quite a long time, didn't really have a great first year. No. And you look at a lot of the other who they've drafted in terms of difference makers.
Murphy was recently as well. And
other than like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow and some others, they feel like they just haven't had great first round picks. So why not get a superstar now? And he wanted out. You've got him in there. Win now. I think that's what they're mode in. So I love this pick. I love this trade just because it's very not Bengals-y.
Yeah.
So why not do something which will improve the team? What other teams within their division, within the conference, do all the time.
Absolutely, and I think we'll go to headline 2 because it kind of plays into it altogether here a little. But we've got defense getting the golden touch. So second-year defensive coordinator Al Golden gets a whole bunch of new players. Dexter Lawrence, obviously the shining light there, but also Boy Maffei, Jonathan Allen, Kyle Duggar, and Brian Cook from KC. I've put here floor raised question mark. Undoubtedly, the floor's raised. I think it's really like go from 30th in point scoring defense to realistically, like what is there, range now? I would say this is kind of a middle of the pack defense. Talent wise, I think that front is really strong. Again, doesn't get much better than Dexter Lawrence. Boy Maffei, maybe he doesn't get the huge numbers, but he certainly contributes. Jonathan Allen, a useful player. I think raising the floor, I think, is a better way than going for the raised ceiling here. There's less, not really gambles. I think every one of these players, you really know what they are and should really give you a solid foundation to work from. Any thoughts on any of these players in particular, Raw?
Yeah, again, some of them were like the higher tier in terms of their position on free agency, and the fact that Bengals went out and spent money now. We've always been very anti-Bengals in that sense, where they fell into getting Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, but not paying that cash as of now. Where a lot of teams who have owners who like to spend the cash and get the big players in, that's how you get them. So doing that, especially on that defense, because you just look at last year, the lost games when they scored 38, 42, 34, and I think there was a couple other like high. And I think the year before there was plenty of games when Joe Burrow was fit where they were scoring mid-30s and still losing. So if they go from 30th to like 16th, you turn them losses into into wins, and suddenly you're fighting for the division, because it's happened too many times where Joe Burrow's been light out and are losing on the last minute field goal, like losing 41-38, crazy like scores like that. So increase that floor, make it easier on your team, and hopefully it helps on, we all were high on Chase Brown last year. So I think not having to chase games, all of this is, I think it's tied in that if you're not chasing, you're having to constantly throw to your main wide receivers and keeping up with the score. Chase Brown should have a better year. The offense should hopefully not have to go gun-ho, which obviously might affect certain fantasy points. But as a Bengals, as an organization, wants to get back to the playoffs and do big things, I think this is huge for them. It feels like a bit of a turn-up. And, them actually being a serious contender and doing right by Joe Burrow, because what you don't want to do is 4 or 5 years' time and Joe Burrow's into his 30s and trying to get elsewhere because they haven't done enough.
Absolutely, yeah. And I just wanted to highlight the boy, my first stat. I was trying to find it while you were talking. He did only have 2 sacks in 2025. When I was on being productive, he was 8th in pass rush win rate among edge rushers per next gen stats last year. So, you're not far away from getting to even maybe double-digit sacks there. If you could just convert just a couple of those, just that extra split second. Obviously, quarterback get the ball out so quick, it's tough. But he is a player who can beat tackles. He just, maybe just needs to be a little quicker or just a little luckier. Maybe we shall see. And there is a space to fill at edge rusher, as we'll see on season headline number 3 here. There is additions, but Hendrick's gone. Will Trey Hendrickson be a big miss after some huge seasons? Certainly 2025 wasn't one of them for Hendrickson. I think he 4 sacks in 7 games. So, I mean, maybe I'm being a bit harsh. I say it wasn't one of them. It's more that he only played 7 games. And once he was done, it felt like he was just no interest in returning. He knew that he wasn't getting traded. Bit of a clean break in the end. Obviously, he's gone in division. Do you think he's going to be a big miss, or do you think Maffei can fill that spot?
Obviously, I think it's a big miss with the sack numbers. Just what's happened throughout his time. That just even looking at since he's been there, he's always had double digits: 13, 10, 15, 13. I know you mentioned last year that was a bit. It is what it is. So I think it's going to be a big miss. Oh, sorry, I was reading the wrong one there. He's had 14, 8, 17.5, 17.5. Yeah. I do apologize. He's had a lot more sacks. So obviously trying to replace 17.5 sacks in a season is big. But I don't know if I would. It is a weird one, Trey Hendrickson. I didn't mind them not paying him just because even though his numbers look extraordinary, I never would say he was in that top tier of defensive edges. It's really weird. Like, I don't know if that's just prejudice against him, and I don't know, he just doesn't have the name. Obviously, having 17.5 sacks 2 years in a running. But what he was asking for and his age and everything going on, we'll see what he does in Baltimore. But obviously, it's going to miss. You're hoping the players have brought in and you're hoping that the draft picks certainly step up to cover that. I think just with what else have brought, I don't think they would have got Sexy Dex if they kept Hendrickson and a few of us. So I think having a better line overall will help that team. I even like the Jonathan Allen, and I think he had a bit of a drop-off season last year. But if he can return to somewhere where he was, especially in Washington and after the Vikings, that middle is going to be so destructive, and then they should hope them young players who they've got on the outside to get more sacks. We just need, even with his 17.5 sacks, this defense was still trash. So it needs to improve all the way around and not just hope for that.
Yeah, I think so too. My last one, last headline here. Again, they didn't do much in free agency, so I looked a little futuristic or into the future here, look into February. On the hot seat or tailor-made. There's been off-season murmurs of Zach Taylor being on the hot seat after 3 years without playoff football. Is it? Does he go if it's 4 seasons without playoff football? Do you think?
I think he should.
Yeah.
Will Bengals pull that? I think is this now his last year? He's only got 1 year left, or I don't know how long he's got left. Yeah, so I think obviously that's a very Bengals-esque lender, the contract went out. So I think if they miss again, he has got to go. 4th year in a row. Usually, we always give head coaches, if they get fired for not making the playoffs, they've not had a quarterback. That's the issue. They've not had a quarterback. They've not had star players, and you feel sorry for them after 3 years. They tried to draft quarterbacks, it's not worked out. You've literally got probably a top 3 quarterback. If he's fit and healthy, he's arguably the best quarterback in the league, especially staying in the pocket and what he can do there. And you've got the best arguably again, the best wide receiver in the league and the best number 2 wide receiver. So having all of that kind of in your pocket, you've got no excuses. And it feels like he's skirted by just because of the Bengals. If he was at any other team, I think he would have got fired last year at least, third year in a row with that kind of team. I think he has like a good relationship with the owner. I think it's like, I can't remember what it is now, but he's got like a very, he knew the owner beforehand, so he has that relationship, which probably helps. Like I would say he should get fired if they don't make the playoffs again. But will he? It's very Bengals-esque to, stick with a head coach for 15 years, even if they're not doing anything.
Yeah, I did have a look. It expires in 2027. So you've got the 2026 and 2027 season. I think they would probably get rid if he doesn't make the playoffs this year, though, as well. One of the things, again, it doesn't make it into our slides here because it's not a headline, but just talking about the Bengals offense in itself, I think the O-line is kind of sneaky okay now as well. I think Mims was better last year. I think Ted Karras is one of the best centers in the league. And then you've got Reisner and Fairchild at guards. And Orlando Brown's not a standout at tackle, but like he's not a tomato can. He's not just someone who gets barreled over. So I kind of have optimism that the line might be as figured out as it's been in probably 5 years in Cincinnati. So, knock on wood for Joe Burrow's health. But I think there's reasons for optimism about the offensive line this year, which I haven't had since, I don't know if it's in Joe Burrow's era, truthfully. So hopefully that means we get a full season Joe Burrow up and healthy. Let's get on to the season for the Bengals, though. I was going to go to free agency, sorry. So got Boy Maffei, Brian Cook, Jonathan Allen in as free agents. Hendrickson out. Lost Noah Fant, who still makes me laugh. He's still a player in the league. I don't think he's done anything since he was drafted, really. Geno Stone left the safety, and Joseph Asai on the edge. Again, it was a bit of a quiet free agency period for the Bengals. Anything that we've not got on the slide here, Joe, you want to mention?
Not really. Like you said, they're not huge misses, I wouldn't say. I'm curious what they're going to do with like Mike Gesicki is still your number one tight end. Who again is one of them players who feel like he's been around forever, and sometimes his knees are held by a shoestring. So curious how they're going to work that around, because they've also got a few young players behind him as well. But yeah, nothing too crazy.
Yeah, I am. That is another one where, again, just before we talk on the draft players themselves, I am a little intrigued. Maybe not for fantasy drafts, but maybe just keep an eye on, see how we go. Eric All, the not a rookie tight end anymore, is torn ACLs in both knees. So there is obviously a lot of pessimism there, or reasons for concern. But I think if he can get on the field, I think he's going to help that offense take an extra step as well. Because Gesicki is just a receiver, whereas Eric Hall, I think, can be an all-over tight end. He can do the blocking. He can help you in play-action game because he can block and break out. So, again, maybe I'm putting a little too much faith in the Bengals getting it together, but I think there is room for optimism there. Draft class, got Cassius Howell in the second round with their first pick. Again, another player on the edge, which I think we know they can't have too many of them, man. Takario Davis, cornerback, and then any of these other names stand out to you, John? I'm not going to break down all 8 of them.
I don't think any of them is going to really be starting straight away.
No.
I think obviously Howell being the second pick, he was one of them defensive edges which could have gone 20th to 50th. It felt like there was always like everyone's draft he would be in some people's first rounders and not in others. So being able to pick him up at that 41st, and you need to keep piling that up, like we've mentioned. The players have lost, but now they've got Howell. We'll see what happens with Shamar Stewart. You mentioned Miles Murphy as well. You're hoping that these players start progressing and contributing more. I'm curious with Colby Young as well. Obviously, it's not going to be starting. If they're playing 2 wide receivers, it's going to be Chase and Higgins. But it's not like it's a huge, depth behind that in terms of like veteran and key players. Obviously, you got Andrea, who feels like he burst onto the scene some games, and some seasons he did it. He was one of them like, pick him up in fantasy. Would have like one good game, and then he would not touch the ball for like 5 weeks afterwards. So you never know with young wide receivers, especially fourth round, having Joe Burrow. He could certainly shine and do something later on, but it's a wait and see. But I think most of these are, again, smart draft is you're expecting some like 1 or 2 players hopefully to contribute with especially depth, but I think a lot of these will be maybe a year or 2 down the line, but you hope the Bengals can start having more success in that way.
Absolutely. And let's see if we're going to get some more success for the Bengals. The 2026 over-under is 10.5 wins. Over is 21-20. Under is 20-27. So lean into the under there, 10 wins. Odds on to make the playoffs. So yes to make the playoffs 5-9. No 7-5. I have the Bengals at 12-5. I was kind of surprised. I do like the Bengals. I didn't think I'd have them going to 12 wins, but schedule's kind of soft, in my opinion. Play the AFC South out of division and I believe the NFC South out of division, which might be the two divisions you pick. So that's a good start. Obviously, you play the Browns twice. I know they end up often splitting with them, but just on a talent basis, I think you'd be happy playing the Browns twice, if any team. So yeah, I have them 12-5, which obviously is making the playoffs. How have you got them, Joe?
Yeah, I've got them 11 wins as well, and I've got them make the playoffs too. I was actually surprised. I know people were talking about the Ravens 11.5 compared to Bengals 10.5. It feels like the Bengals are more settled, which is not a usual thing for the Bengals. And just with how this offseason's gone, I've been impressed. So 10.5 wins, like you mentioned, with the schedule. Yeah, I've got them at 11. Can easily see them getting 12. And hopefully, if everyone stays fit, I think they should reach that and be challenging for the division title.
Speaking of which, let's see those division prices. Division 9-5, conference 10-1, Super Bowl 20-1. They all kind of appeal to me, I must say. If that defense is middle of the pack and that O-line's fine, 20-1's a nice price on that Super Bowl. Kind of like the anti-Texans we've talked about, who are my Super Bowl pick. You know, I mean, if you combine their offense and defense, you probably have a 0-17 team and a 17-0 team. So, I think 20-1's a nice price. Obviously, I'd like it a little longer, but I certainly don't hate it. Joe Burrow, we know, can hit that high. So, yeah, I don't mind any of these, really. I'm not betting the Super Bowl, but I certainly don't mind it. Any of them for you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm the exact same. So, the conference are the 7th favourite to win the AFC, which is, when I was looking, that's actually surprising that 6 teams above them. I can see how it's got there, but I like the Super Bowl. When we talked about the Seahawks in terms of looking for a team who's around that 20 mark where you can see going on a run and winning it. And I think the Bengals are that kind of team. Obviously, the Seahawks is more defensive side and using defense wins championships and certainly helps you in the playoffs. But we've seen it the last time they got there that it felt like it was the defense actually stepped up them and it wasn't a power hit and the offense actually dropped down a bit. But you've seen plenty of teams who are able to score plenty of points and get there too. And like I said, if they have a nice schedule and they have that home field advantage, that 20-1 for Joe Burrow-led team, I wouldn't be surprised. It feels like he's one of them watches can just go on a huge run like he did obviously with LSU in 15-0. And he's that kind of presence where once he gets on a roll, it's hard to stop him. So 20-1, I think that's a really nice price for the Bengals.
Absolutely. And going from someone that's 20-1 to win the Super Bowl to someone who I think might be a little longer. We'll see by the end of the slide, but I think that might be a little longer. The Cleveland Browns, 2025, 5-12, AFC North, 4th in the division, unsurprisingly, at 5-12. Missed the playoffs for only the second year in a row, which feels like an achievement. Offense, 31st in scoring. Defense with the Defensive Rookie of the Year and the all-time sack leader in a season, 14th in points. Ooh, not a great year for the 2025 Cleveland Browns. Quarterback turmoil. I think they started 3 or 4 over the season. 2 Pro Bowlers in there somehow because nobody else wanted to go. Joe Flacco and Shadur Sanders made it. Great rookie season of Carson Schlesinger, of course. Myles Garrett sets the all-time sacks record for a season. But I think other than those 2 noting points, nothing to note for the season. And we'll get to what changes came in 2026. Anything else you want to talk on the 2025 Browns?
No, I think it was just a crazy one, just with all in the draft itself, just going, picking all the quarterbacks and then constantly changing. And I was surprised too putting this slide to go to his second year missing, but then I forgot about the Joe Flacco-led Browns getting Stefanski's his second coach of the year nod. But it felt like a typical Browns year. They were 3-12 and another one the last 2 games, but at that point it was nothing riding for. It felt like for them, and the defense, which was the mainstay a couple of years before with Jim Schwartz, I think took a step back, even though they did have quite a few rookies. I think the only positive thing, you mentioned some of the rookies, which at least gave you some hope. You mentioned Schlesinger and also Fanning Jr., for example, and a few others, and Judkins, and you're like, you can see, but we'll talk about again. The quarterback room is always the issue in Cleveland.
Absolutely. And we said goodbye to a Hall of Famer and a legend in Cleveland. Hall of Famer departs, and it's time for a new verse in Cleveland. Browns blow up. Myles Garrett heads to LA as verse comes in with a songbook full of picks. 27 first, 28 second and a 27 third, I believe it was. It was a 1-2-3 anyway, with the first in 27 for sure. And I mean, this is a statement of intent here. This is not a team that's competing for 2026. You don't trade away Myles Garrett if you are going to the Super Bowl. I love what the Browns did, truthfully. It's hard to say bye to players like Myles Garrett. But to me, if you're not winning with Myles Garrett, breaking the sack record, and all those other great things they had last year, other than the quarterbacks, then you're probably not going to win with him in 2026 either. Reset a little, give yourself more capital for 27. Jared Verse is a great player, 2-time Pro Bowler in his first 2 years. And those were first choice Pro Bowls. Those weren't Shadur Sanders Pro Bowls where no other edge rushers wanted to go. He was the first selections, or like in the first group of selections for that. So I love it. It's really hard to say goodbye to a player like Myles Garrett, but by the time the Browns are hoping to compete in 27 or 28, you have to accept Myles Garrett will have taken a step back by then. And he gets paid a ton of money, which he deserves, but it's not easy for a bottom barrel team to pay that money. How was your feelings on the trade, Joe?
Yeah, I think it makes sense, like everything you've said. I'm curious because it felt like the year before when he wanted the trade, but they gave him a lot of money, what they would have got. It felt like the Eagles were going to get him at one point, and I'm curious if they could have got a lot more draft capital at that point. Obviously, they traded as well in the first round in 2025 to Jacksonville. So they're suddenly getting a lot of picks. Again, feels very Cleveland Brownsy. Feels like every 3 or 4 years, the Cleveland Brown goes into a draft with 7-8 picks in the top 100, and it's just what do they do with that? And it's not gone quite well so far. But yeah, it makes sense. I do like Jared Verse, similar to you. I'm curious. It's obviously a big difference from being part of that Rams team and the players they had on there to come into a Cleveland Browns team where he is now the main guy. Yeah. And you hope to step up like Mason Graham from 2025 first round pick, which when you look at actually that trade and the people traded above him, I know some people were very negative about that because you could have got your Abdul Carter, you could have got your Travis Hunter, they got Will Campbell was before him as well, but none of them have been crazy good. So I think Mason had a decent first year, and you hope that he steps up as well. But overall, makes sense. You hope that it felt like he was going to be a Browns for life once he signed that contract last year. But just how bad the year was and everything what went off. We'll see in the long run. Can they make them pigs tell? But it felt like with the quarterback group they've got, it was going to be a similar year. So at least make it more exciting for the league to have arguably the best pass rusher in the last, I was going to say a generation, but I think JJ Watt is certainly a contender. But yeah, they're certainly up there. Make it worth it.
Absolutely. And it's very rare. I mean, it tells you how big Myles Garrett is that, we'll go to slide 2 here, but Stefanski out, Monken in. It's very rare that a head coach leaving is not slide 1. That is how big the Myles Garrett impact is. More downs and ups end Kevin's reign in Cleveland. How do you see 6-year-old rookie head coach Todd Monken doing?
I'm not quite sure. I don't like. It's always tricky when it's these kind of hires because it feels like why has he not been hired before? And it's not like the Ravens' offense was, this juggernaut, and it was all these brand new ideas, and it felt like they were a bit hamstrung. And I don't know. It wasn't like a hire. I was like, wow, this is going to change the franchise. This is going to be a whole new game. And it felt like it was a time for Stefanski to leave. He's obviously a 2-time coach of the year with the Browns. So obviously to remove him, it's like, have they got better with Monken? Is Monken better than Stefanski? I don't think he is. But it felt like it was the right time for Stefanski to go just with everything which was around the Browns, just with everything that's happened. So I'm curious how Monken felt with Garrett going. Obviously that doesn't help whatsoever in terms of, your rookie head coach. You've just lost your best player on the squad. And it's probably the GM who's made that decision, but hey, that's what he's being given. So I'm curious how many years he's got. If it's another stinky year, I wouldn't be surprised if it's one and done. It just feels that kind of playing very Browns, which they did when they got. And I'm just trying to remember his name. Oh, who was the offensive coordinator? And then he got
Freddie
the job.
Kitchens.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
I'm curious if it's like, because it feels like there's always something with the Browns. There's always drama. So it's, can Monken be a head coach and not just an offensive coordinator? That's what it comes down to. And I don't know how did you feel like in terms of excitement or?
Yeah, I feel a bit for Todd Monken, truthfully, because I think when you're a 60-year-old coach, offensive coordinator, who I think he's done well at the Bucs, he's done well at Georgia. I think he did okay at the Ravens, like you say. I don't think it was, his first year he had Lamar Jackson MVP, like Alec mentioned earlier. But then it felt like by year 3, it kind of, the innovation maybe gone a little and it got a little more predictable. But when you're a 60-year-old coach who's never been a head coach before, you don't really have the choice to be picky about what job you might take. Mm-hmm. I do worry, though, we're looking at a one and done, and you get, say, Mike McDaniel, fresh off an LA Chargers incredible offensive season, who handpicks his quarterback next year, and you don't want to waste a year with Todd Monken doing that. That's kind of my feel. I think we're probably looking at a one and done. I hope not, because I quite like Todd Monken, and I really, I don't have the graphic up to share, unfortunately, but I kind of feel like the image of the offseason of the Browns has been Todd Monken looking sad with his new haircut at the NFL coaches seminar thing because he missed the photo shoot to get a haircut for the photo shoot. And then he just came out and went, "What, they've done it already? I just went to get my haircut for it." And he had this like sad old man look on his face. And it just felt like, oh, this poor guy shouldn't be a head coach. Like, these shouldn't be the issues you're having, Todd. You should be bouncing with life. You shouldn't look like a frail old man who's just got his first haircut in 6 months. So I hope it goes well for him, 'cause I like him, but I just don't think it's going to. I think there's too much to do on this offense. And I think they've got lots of young pieces that we like, but we're going to get to the quarterback situation in a minute, so I don't want to dive too much into it. But I struggle to see how you can have success here this year in 2026. And I think that's unfairly, probably in my estimation, going to lead to a one and done year. And 2027 will be the fresh new Browns with their new quarterback. Charlie agrees. Yeah.
I feel like it's what the Cardinals did a few years back in terms of it felt like they set up their head coach to fail that first year because they really wanted the high draft pick and like start again. So it's that weird. I don't know. I feel like, and we'll talk about the quarterbacks. Is if the Browns went, 7-10, would that actually be like a terrible outcome because they would have to give a lot of draft picks to get that main quarterback, but it's that awkward bit where it's how do you want the season to go? Because no team wants to lose, but like and all that kind of stuff. But ideally for the Browns, you'd get that number 1 pick with all the other picks you've got as well.
Yeah,
get your quarterback, which we say this quite a lot, but it feels like it's the year for quarterbacks in 2027. I
think there's an element of again, I think element of that quarterback. I think the only way that, unless they make the playoffs, which I've got to spoiler alert a little here, I don't think they will. The only way it's a successful season and not have like a top 2 pick is if you now know Shadur Sanders is the guy. And I probably think the more I make the playoffs and that be the case, truthfully. So, if he's a 2-time Pro Bowler in a year's time and he's definitely the guy, then 7-10 might be absolutely fine. I really struggle. I think that's like a 1% outcome. I don't think that's a high likelihood. So, yeah, not one I see coming. But what I think the Browns might be more well-positioned to do this year, if we go to slide 3, is the Browns ready to ground and pound. Full O-line makeover. As first-rounder Spencer Fano highlights all the changes, overhauled line. They also brought in Zion Johnson from the Chargers, Eldon Jenkins from the Packers, and Titus Howard came from the Texans. Tevin Jenkins, the only person who kept his position in the guard. So that was bottom 3 team in the league. Raiders, Titans had their own contenders, I think, for bad play last year, but the Browns were terrible. Only good things from changing it all up, right?
Yeah, definitely. Like it felt like it was the Browns' blueprint in terms of the offensive line. It felt like 3 or 4 years ago they had one of the best.
Yep.
And I think this is a reason why they fired the GM and everything is that the internal evaluation where they paid them big contracts to keep them going when they were dropping off, and a lot of them did drop off, which is a reason why this has happened. Obviously, when you do a huge offensive line, it's always get excited in the offseason, like, oh, they fixed the offensive line now. They've got these players. It's going to be great. Doesn't always work out. I always say there's a reason when offensive linemen get to free agency or traded away, because there's not enough good offensive linemen in the league for teams not to pay them. Yeah. Ask a lot of teams who are struggling for players. So can they get the scheme right? I think we're all a big fan of what Judkins did last year before unfortunately the injury. So hopefully he comes back. I think he's been in some trainings. I know he's questionable at the minute. He's got an undisclosed injury and wasn't playing, but he could be a big player. He could take up he felt like obviously they let Chubb go with his bad injury. It felt like end of an era. And then when Judkins started the year, it felt like they may have actually got a great replacement. And so fingers crossed he's back up and healthy and showing what he can do with a better offensive line, because I think they certainly need to help out the QBs just with who they might have, because they're not the greatest when there's a lot of pressure, which I know not most quarterbacks are not, but these ones probably not at all.
Absolutely, and that takes us nicely to headline 4. Quarterback purgatory, one more year. Watson nor Sanders able to separate in camp. Any hope of progress this year, or is it all on 2027 at this point?
Well, they decided to draft another quarterback, didn't they, this year in Taylor Green? So he might play, in the 6th round. Again, another craze. Like, why are you getting more quarterbacks? You've got, it is what it is. The Browns are doing the Browns. It feels like Deshaun Watson's going to start. That's the, looking at the tea leaves, just looking at it's not like he's blowing it away when you look at both stats. They're both just as garbage as each other, it feels like. And you look at what Deshaun Watson's given them from that trade. I think that probably could go down as the worst trade ever. It's certainly in the top 2, with how much they gave up in terms of picks, how much they gave up in terms of money, how much they gave up in terms of reputation with going for that kind of player and selling your soul to get Deshaun Watson. And he's missed, I'm sure I saw somewhere he's missed 49 games. He's not played more than, not more than 5 games in a year. 7 games. He started 7 games in 2024, so he's not played more than half the year. His TD and interception is fairly similar. I think he's just got a couple of more TDs to interception, but he's been a bit of a disaster. And it was weird. It felt like he got injured at the end of last year. It felt like he was having more surgery, and it felt like he wasn't going to play this year for them. But in training camp, he said, and I think they want him to, just to be like, how we showed you. But this is the last year of his guaranteed money, so I wonder if they're just going to play him again. Hope that he has a bit of a disaster, and then being able to get rid of him, because he's just been such an issue with the Browns and just everything what's come with him and everything what's happened. It's crazy. It's weird that in 2023 he went 5-1 in 6 games. It was still a disaster, and it hardly threw that much as well. It was. I think that was
Nick Chubb, really.
Basically, it was weird. I remember that just happening. Holy, how is he? Everyone's he's winning 5-1, he's fine, but again, he's not the Deshaun Watson of old. Shadur Sanders, I think everyone bigs him up just because of the name, and he can produce great things, but there's been too many times where there's been mega games, and there's sometimes you look at quarterbacks and you're like, oh, he's going to be a top-end starter. And you can usually tell that fairly quickly. I don't think Shadur Sanders is that. It could be a great backup to come in, or maybe a low-level bridge guy. But I think, and same with Dylan Gabriel, I don't think he showed anything as well. So I think it's going to be another year where if they do anything, it's because that offensive line and Judkins is tearing it up because of what they're able to do. And I'm curious. We'll get into the draft, but the wide receiver room looks decent now in terms of the 2 youngsters, if they can hit, and with Jerry Jeudy as well, and Howard Fanning with him hitting, obviously and Joker going. But I'm curious how they'll go with that, with the quarterback, what it's been, and it's an interesting one. I don't know. Obviously, I'm staying away from them in fantasy because I think each of them might play, 5 games each with how it's looking.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. And I think we will see Taylor Green at some point. Bit of a project. I mean, he's a 6th round quarterback. I think he was a 6th round quarterback. So he's obviously going to be a project, but he can move a little bit. It gives them something. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him. Certainly, I don't think the future is in the room, though. I think it is all on 27. And we'll have a quick look at free agency. I think we've covered pretty much everyone already, but I'll have a quick run through them. Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins, Titus Howard from the Texans, Jared Verse we mentioned, Devin Bush left town, Wyatt Teller guard obviously out of the building, and Njoku, long-time tight end, and Myles Garrett couldn't go without mentioning again. Any other names that they made that stood out to you, Joe? I don't have any.
They brought in Quincy Williams as well from the Jets, which should help with the Devin Bush leaving. But no one else crazy. I was surprised Njoku went, and the contract he got from the Chargers. It was one of them where when I was like doing the slides of the Chargers, I thought, oh, he only got that much money, and he wasn't like that high. So I'm surprised they didn't bring him back, because I thought it was a nice 1-2 with him and Harold Fanning, and I felt like he always contributed. He was always that great backup tight end in fantasy, because he'll get you a number of touchdowns every year and decent amount of yards when there's no one else. But again, I think it's a growing year. I think it's going to be another struggle year, but you're hoping for these youngsters and getting the older veterans and letting the youngsters get a lot more playing time to see if they've got something there, to be honest. So
yeah, and a lot more youngsters was the takeaway from the draft. 10 in total. I'll touch on the top ones here, but yeah, Spencer Fano we've mentioned at tackle. Casey Concepcion, 24th pick, first round as well. Got Denzel Boston, 39, second rounder. And then Emmanuel McNeil Warren fell down to 58, the safety. And 6 more names I'm not going to go through. I love what they did again. I think they had a really strong draft in 25. 26, I love KC Concepcion. I think he's such an interesting player. I've touched on this a bit with the Browns. It kind of reminds me, though, the Browns are great if they can just have a quarterback. Well, KC Concepcion's great if he can just catch the ball. And it's like, well, that is a real big part of his job. So let's hope he's got it ironed out. Denzel Boston has been getting pretty good reviews through training camp, getting open. And again, his size and his build, I think he's going to be someone that is a goal line threat, red zone threat who can, box out defenders. And McNeil Warren just seems like a great value. He was speculated as high as like 15 in the draft, ends up at 58. Any of those guys you want to touch on, Joe, or any of the names I haven't mentioned?
Yeah, I do really like. So Boston, similar to you, I've heard a lot of great things from camp that he's technically looked better than Casey Concepcion. So I'm curious how that'll fit just with his big frame, 6'4", being the X receiver. So he could be kind of like a Cortland Sutton, Michael Pittman, where there's a lot of, like I said, red zone targets and just targets in general, just to move the needle. Because both quarterbacks don't, I wouldn't say have huge arms, so it might be very much like, I'm just thinking of like Michael Pittman in the Colts, how many just like 10 yards he was just constantly piled up. So I've gone for Boston in a few drafts in terms of that depth wide receiver there, just because I think he could have a big year. And I'm curious with Jerry Jeudy, because I feel like last year he took a step back. So especially them two can certainly contribute, and you're hoping for both to like hit and have like decent, good years. And then, like you mentioned, when you're looking at all the young players, that okay, if you hit that quarterback next year, which is never guaranteed, you've certainly got a great squad around. But yeah, it looks like a lot of these players are very, again, depth picks, but I think there are quite a few might get some game time. And, they got the 2 tight ends we talked about in Njoku leaving, and just with some of the offensive tackles, with the injuries. So, get them playing time. Let's see what you've got with them. And the future, if they hit again like they did last year, then they've got a great foundation of players to move forward with, and hopefully get that final piece to, I was going to say, get back to, if they are where the Browns are normally at, to do something what the Browns don't normally do and compete and compete for the titles, for the division, and actually do something and be the Browns from the 60s. I think that's probably more going back, isn't it?
Yeah, it might be a little further as well. And just one thing to watch out for if you play in IDP leagues, fantasy wise, just check that you're picking the right Justin Jefferson up, because they took a 5th round middle linebacker, Justin Jefferson here, who I don't think is going to score as many fantasy points as Justin Jefferson of the Vikings. So just please make sure if you type in the name that you pick the right one. Hate to see someone make that old Adrian Peterson mistake. He used to be a Bears backup running back when Adrian Peterson was on the Vikings. So, make sure you get the right Justin Jefferson. And we'll look ahead to the 2026 season for the Browns. The over under 5.5. Over's 10 to 13, so they're favouring the over there. Under is even money. Make the playoffs 6-1 to make the playoffs. No is 1 to 10, which is unbackable, in my opinion. I'm looking where I have the Browns. Where do you have the Browns, Joe?
I have them at 4 wins. I have them at 4 wins. I think, again, when you look at the schedule, there's winnable games for them. Like, I don't think the start of the year is that daunting when you've got, Jags, Bucks, Panthers, Steelers, Jets, Ravens, Titans, Steelers, New Orleans. The first 9 weeks, you're like, they could get 3 wins. Yeah, I wouldn't be shocked. Just with us, but then all the other teams are like, oh, we're playing the Browns, so we expect to win. They've got the Vegas later on, the Falcons, the Giants, the Colts. So it's not. I don't think it's a daunting schedule. It's not one where I'll be like, okay, I'm definitely buying it. But I've got them at 4 or 5 wins, so I'll probably go the under with being evens. But that's probably why the over is more heavily favoured, just with that schedule. What's there, but again, I think it's how they start. Like with the one I've just gone through, if they can pick up 3 wins, then they could get to 6 or 7. But if they go, 1-8, then it's a bit like, okay, we're getting in, Green, we're getting in Dillon, and it's a bit of a disaster again.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where I am as well. I am at 3 wins, so I am lower on the total than you. But I think what could be like a pivotal game is that first home game. So they're at the Jags, then they're at the Bucs. And I think you would expect them to be 0-2 at that point. If they're not 0-2, but incredible, bonus for them. But the Panthers are banged up. I don't know who the Panthers have weeks 1 and 2, but I feel that could be real pivotal because I think if they lose that game at home, I think already if you're 0-3, I can maybe see people being like, oh, geez, it's the same season again. We're going 0-17, the match for Arch, etc., etc. Whereas if they can win that game, then they've got the Steelers at home the Thursday night on the short week there. Come what may in that game. But, I think you really want to have a win. I think that Panthers one could be a real big one. If they can win, I think you can easily look at getting the 6 wins, get momentum built from there. I don't think they're a million miles away from the Steelers talent-wise outside of the quarterback position, which we keep saying. But I just worry that, if they start losing games, then it is going to be, well, the quarterbacks aren't it. Let's have a look at, Tylen Green. Let's have a look at Dylan Gabriel again, whatever it may be. So, I think there's an easy case to make where they just bottom out entirely. Like I said, I have them at 3 wins. I can see them getting to 5 or 6, with the schedule, but I think they're one of them teams who I think really could do starting well. And that schedule does allow them to, so we shall see. We're both taking the under, though, and we'll go through the next slide, but I think it's going to be nose. Division 20-1, Conference 90-1, Super Bowl 250-1. It's all nose for me, obviously. I don't see them making the playoffs. I'm not backing it at 1-10, but I'm not backing any of these at 20-1, 90-1, or even 250-1. I don't know how many zeros you have to add, but it'd be a few. So, we'll see we'll see the Browns in 2027. That takes us to the Pittsburgh Steelers. 10-7, won the AFC North, but once again done the traditional trick. Turned up for the playoffs wild card and really might as well not have bothered. Lost 6-30 versus the Texans. A dismal showing on offense. Offense finished 15th on the season in scoring, 17th defense scoring. And that really feels like a perfect summation of the 2025 Steelers. Got bounced in the wildcard round without really any much notice from the Texans defense. Offense was middle of the pack. Defense was middle of the pack. It was enough to creak over the line in this division that had a really poor year with Lamar and Joe Burrow missing so much time. Anything else to say on the 2025 Steelers, Joe?
I think we could just repeat the 2024 season stuff. Just like, they made the playoffs. They got knocked out. They were very average. Average out the offense, defense, bang in the middle. The one games, it is very, Steelers-esque when, especially, I think they were 6-6 and they won 4 of the last 5, including being the Ravens twice and the Lions, where you weren't expecting them to beat some of these teams, but they just, just take them wins. It is what, a Mike Tomlin team did when they had to win. They certainly wanted to keep them in contention and just stayed course. But again, another wildcard disaster where it feels like it must be 4 or 5 years where I feel we all went in and being not expecting to do anything at home against a good team and just bottling out and just going a bit of a disaster. So just replay what we did last year, and we'll see what happens next year with all the big changes, which we can go to the first headline.
Absolutely, yeah. So Tomlin's sanity ends after 19 years. 0 losing seasons for Tomlin, but all things come to an end, and Pennsylvania's own Mike McCarthy gets a nod to take the reins. I write the headlines, and I can't remember what the PA stands for. Wonderful. Yeah, Mike McCarthy Tomlin out after 19 years, never has a losing season. But, you've just said it perfectly. You could repeat this year, you could repeat it last year, you could have repeated it probably the year before and the year before. They reach a certain level, and they've reached that certain level. The ceiling just isn't there, it doesn't feel like. So I think it's justified. But what do you think of Mike McCarthy getting the job?
I feel like they can repeat again this year and just put Mike McCarthy in there. I'm not quite sure if that losing season, if that's going to hold up in terms of, because I feel like Mike McCarthy, obviously you can speak to him in a second, from the Cowboys' perspective, is that hasn't really evolved with the game. He had the year out. He said he did all this homework, all this research, and he's suddenly, a new modern man. But even at the Cowboys, there was never a time where, obviously they had good offenses, but that's the group of players they had. It never felt like, oh, this is the scheme, what's helping this out. It felt like a traditional scheme. You bring him back. And this is why I have a problem with the Steelers. And I wouldn't say I was huge surprised that Tomlin went. I think you could tell he felt like he wanted to go just with the pressure and just everything which was around there. And there was whisperings, and it never felt like there was that kind, because they kept winning and they kept being in playoffs. He probably looks 20 years younger already when he starts working on TV, just without the stress of being an NFL coach. But I was just surprised because, again, he felt like he was doing enough to keep his job. And there was some teams he coached where they shouldn't have had a winning record. And I think the Steelers are in this position again where they're going to end up being 16th, 17th best team, getting that in the draft pick. And you just can't, it's just hard to get that quarterback. They took the big swing when they took the first quarterback in Kenny Pickett to stay in PA as well, in Pittsburgh. And that didn't work out. Obviously, we'll talk about what they've done to the quarterback again for this year, but I don't know if they're ever going to get that Ben Roethlisberger, and that's just a tricky thing. Hitting on that kind of quarterback, I don't want to say it's luck, because obviously not every team can do that, but that just worked out perfectly for them and for Tomlin as well. And it's just so hard to draft that quarterback in that middle section. You're not always going to hit, and they've certainly tried to get plenty of second and third round quarterbacks within their time, and no one's ever had that step up. I was a bit. It made sense to Mike McCarthy. It made sense, but it didn't excite me. Nothing's changed my mind if Tomlin was there compared to if Mike McCarthy's there. I just feel like they're going to be average as usual, just because they've got some good players, but a lot of their good players now are aging. So I actually think this might be the first year they have a losing record.
I think so as well. And my kind of thing is, like, I don't think you've improved the ceiling of the team with McCarthy, and I think you've lowered the floor. I don't really get it. But I think McCarthy talks a good game to owners, and, he's very experienced, so he's got a lot to fall back on. But, I don't really get it. I don't know if this is going to be a one and done like we talked about with Todd Monken. But I do struggle to see the vision of the future, I guess, under Mike McCarthy. And I guess tying to that does take us to our second headline of, along with Rodgers, along with Mike McCarthy, you have one last dance for Aaron Rodgers. Mike McCarthy's reuniting with former quarterback Aaron Rodgers. A natural fit. They've obviously worked together in Green Bay before. It'll be the Aaron Rodgers offense again with McCarthy chipping in, I presume. Just makes good sense, right?
It made sense because they've, backed themselves into that corner in terms of where else they could have gone. So it makes, and the same for Aaron Rodgers. It's not like, I don't think many of the teams were scrambling to get him compared to a few years ago when he went to the Jets. So it makes sense for both sides. But again, it gives me nothing. Like, Aaron Rodgers had an okay year. I know some of his stats look a lot better, but I don't think he's not been the Aaron Rodgers since he's left Green Bay. And I don't think he has the team or the ability to bring his team up. I feel like he's got that position now. And, not everyone's Tom Brady. Not everyone can play Super Bowls into their mid-40s. He's really been the only one who's had that high level at that age. But he also went to a Bucs team which felt very loaded at that point. I think he did when he was the Pats. I think he certainly brought them along with him. And I don't think Rodgers is. I think Rodgers needs that as well. It is a team which just needs a game management to come into, and I don't think the Pittsburgh is that. I think he needs to raise the ceiling. I don't think he does. I think he probably lowers this. Well, there wasn't anyone else to get, so I don't mind it in that sense. But again, it doesn't excite me. It doesn't. I don't think, this is a Super Bowl contender. They might be thereabouts in the playoffs, as the Steelers always are, annoyingly, and they might get to the wild card and lose again. But it just doesn't excite me. And I'm curious, what they can do going forward. I'll throw one out to you, and I'll see what you think. What about Baker returning to the AFC North next year?
Could see it. See it. Yeah, if he's a free agent this time next year, if the Bucs don't get it done, he seems like someone who would love to go and stick it to Cleveland twice a year, certainly. And I think he would be really, whoever you have as coach, I think he's a good fit generally. I think he's grown up in the last few years. And no, I love that call. Yeah, I think that's a real good one. Because the other option this year, I think, would have been Kyler Murray. And it just doesn't feel like a Steelers quarterback to me. No. I think Baker Mayfield's much more in that line. I did look up while we were talking Aaron Rodgers there. Last year was the third worst year of his career by EPA per dropback. So, again, I don't see that improving this year. I totally agree. It is a natural fit because they backed themselves into it, but it's really hard to be excited about it. But yeah, did add a weapon for him, though. So we'll take a look at headline 3 and see who else we've got in there. Pass catchers are no longer the Pits, man. Michael Pittman comes in from Indy and gets paid as well, 3-year contract. A good pair with DK Metcalf to get the best out of Rodgers. I think he will be. I think is a huge addition on whoever was wide receiver 2 last year, and it's racking my brain trying to think of who that was. Calvin Austin, maybe? I'm trying to think if I've just completely forgotten somebody, but I don't think I have. So I think he's a good addition. Pittman is not like, he's not a burner. He's not going to beat you, down the field over and over again. He's not, your MVSs or your, speed runners downfield. So, yeah, I like Pittman. Maybe Metcalf can get deeper downfield a little, but Rodgers is going to get that ball out real quickly. And having someone who can get open quickly, I think it's going to be really important to keep that offense on track. How are you feeling about the Pittman fit?
Yeah, I don't mind it too. I think they needed to upgrade. Then, you mentioned, I think it probably was Calvin Austin or even maybe Roman Wilson. It probably was a Darnell Washington, really, was the second pass catcher. Just what excitement anyway when he got rumbling. So I do like it because, Rodgers can't throw it long anymore. And Pittman's the perfect guy for a 10-yard throw. Last year, he got 80 receptions for 784, average 9.8. And that just feels like a perfect Pittman kind of stat in terms of he gets you 10 yards. And that's what they probably need with Rodgers because he can't throw it down the field. While Metcalf got, less receptions, but he got 850 yards. He was 14.4 average per catch. And that's probably going to be his role again, where him and Calvin Austin are going to be the burners. I feel like Metcalf can get it he can get it shorter than, it's not even there, what I'm on about. But Wilson, but I think Metcalf can certainly have different levels where it feels like Pittman's going to be the red zone kind of target and just the slow, methodical offense, which I think this team's going to be. I think it's going to be not an exciting team to watch. I think it's going to be one of them where they've had 15 plays where it's been like 6 runs and every throw is like 5 to 10 yards. And there might be one where Metcalf catches in, he actually has a burner, but I don't think it's going to be Rodgers throwing it 50 yards down the field. He might throw it like 20, 30, and then Metcalf does the rest. And then, him, Pat Frymouth, Darnell Washington, Pittman are all going to be like 10 yards from Rodgers, and that's just what I think it's going to be. So it makes sense, improve that offense, sign him for a bit longer, and see where it takes you from there. But what they gave up as well, I was surprised how much they did give up for him. I thought they would have to give more for that kind of wide receiver. So I think it was good business by them.
Yeah, and just on the kind of depth of target and stuff like that of Rodgers, one of my favorite stats last year, one of the players now left, Kenny Gainwell, but Kenny Gainwell and Jalen Warren, their yards after catch accounted for 30% of Aaron Rodgers' total passing yards last season, which I didn't actually do a comparison, but that's a huge number. It's Gainwell's now gone. They've got Rico Dowdle in. He hasn't got his own slide here, Rico, but not really the kind of pass catcher Gainwell is. So I am curious whether, does that Kenny Gainwell targets end up on Pittman? Slightly different scheming, obviously, there. But, it was such a huge part of the offense last year. I am interested to see how and who gets replaced in that target distribution. And being Pittsburgh, we do finally need to get to defense. So defense rocking black and gold and green. Jamal Dean comes in to pair with Joey Porter, getting paid big money. Bristol comes from Chicago, and then the big green comes for the extensions. Nick Herbig gets his big extension, $100 million, and Keanu Benton gets the highest paid defensive lineman in team history along with Cam Hayward. So 2 guys getting big bucks, and then Jamal Dean coming on good money as well. Briscoe more of a, not vet minimum, but standard veteran contract. But yeah, money being spent on defense. I think Jamal Dean signs a real good one. Joey Porter's been a real good corner, certainly last year. I think he had a bit of an up and down rookie year, but since then, I think he's really excelled. And he'll be due a big paycheck soon as well. I think just good business by the Steelers here. There was a lot of talk of Herbig maybe being a trade candidate, but I think they've gone the right way and paid him. I think he shines in somewhat limited snaps. So it'll be interesting to see how much that ups over the year, but I certainly expect it to. How are you feeling on these moves?
Yeah, do like the Jamal Dean. As Joey Porter, he's on the PUP list at the minute. He got placed there on Tuesday with a back injury, which is never great. So you see what happens there. It is interesting that the players who extended the big extension are right now second on the depth chart in terms of their position. Obviously Hegberg behind Watt, and feels like Highsmith got a lot more, and Benton behind Haywood. But yeah, it makes sense that I don't know what to think about this defense, because it feels like a few years ago they were, the main reason they were getting to the playoffs, and then suddenly last year it just felt like it took a step back. It felt like they got a bit older when you look at the players, like you said, Cam Haywood, TJ Watt's getting older. Patrick Queen came from the Ravens. I think he had a decent first year, but he's getting slightly older. They brought Jalen Ramsey in, which again I think is a lot older player as well. So it just felt like they were getting old. Obviously they've made some changes, but hopefully Herbig plays a little bit more. They drafted Derek Harmon, who I think had a good first year as well. Obviously, just everything went on there. And it looks like they've got they've got good depth as well. But can they be that difference maker they were a few years ago? I wouldn't even talk about Chris Boswell got a big contract as well. Todd Bozzy. I can't figure out what I think about this defense, because I feel like when you look at it as a whole, you think, oh, it's going to be great again. But they were disappointed last year, and they haven't made huge changes. So can they do that reverse? And who is the DC for Steelers? I didn't even
Patrick Graham, who's former Raiders, former Giants. Again, not a history that says this guy's going to sort you out. I think, again, it's a pretty low floor, low ceiling move, if I must say. The names are good on defense. I totally agree. It's good business to pay your players, but you do want that youth injection coming through. Joey Porter's obviously a younger player, but he's due on his first veteran contract coming up. I wonder if that's related to his back injury, I dare say, as Christian Gonzalez and Devin Witherspoon get paid. So, yeah, there's not much young blood coming through that you're excited about, certainly. So, and it's not this isn't a Texans defense or a Broncos defense where you're like, oh, they're going to knock you out week after week. It feels like it's one of them where it's very paired well with this offense of ground and pound and run the clock, and probably not going to be anyone's first watch on a Sunday that isn't a Steelers fan. But we will get to their free agency, see who else they brought in. So Jamal Dean, the headliner. Rico Dowdle, one of my favorites, certainly from last year. Nice big winner. Jaquan Brisker, Michael Pittman comes in by trade. Lose Isaac Seumalo to the Cardinals. Kenny Gainwell goes to the Bucks. James Pierre, cornerback, goes. And Jonnu Smith, I believe, still unsigned tight end, has been released as well, or hit free agency. If Jonnu Smith's getting a mention here, I'm guessing there isn't any other bigger names that we could have mentioned. So any other names for you to mention, Joe?
No, not really. Obviously, Seumalo leaving was, I think he had a good year last year at the guard. So you're curious how, because it felt like when you looked at their draft capital they put in there and just the names, you thought, okay, this could be a great offensive line. Obviously, they got Zach Frazier last year, Troy Fatanu, and with having that, it was like, again, it's another offensive line which needs to hit just with the quarterback they've got. So, fingers crossed. They could step up. They've got Mason McCormick and Spencer Anderson coming in the guards, which are not household names, but you never know with lines. It can work out perfectly with just a system, or it can be a disaster when you've got all the names. So yeah.
Absolutely. And let's see what young blood, we've said they haven't got much in, but let's see what they did this year. Oh, man, there's another load of names here. Let's get through some of them at least. Maxi Anacho, I think will be right tackle, came in at the first round, 21. Jeremy Bernard, I also say Gio Bernard, the former Bengals running back for that, but Jeremy Bernard, wide receiver. Drew Aller, maybe the quarterback of the future. We shall see at 76. And then they also brought in one of my favorites from the pre-draft process, and maybe he'll compete for a start off the bat, actually, Jennings Dunker, with his beautiful ginger mullet. If you're not familiar with him, I'd say give him a look. He's got a great bit of style to him. Looks very country music, and he'll kick your ass while he does it. So he went 96, just before 100 in the third round, and they drafted 5 other players. Not going to get to all of them. Any of these you want to touch on, Joe?
Not really. I think a lot of them, I don't even, some of them not even getting onto the depth squad, especially the lower ranked ones. So
I was kind of excited. I was kind of excited by Eli Heidenreich in the process, but he looks like he's made like no impact in training camp. I think he's probably going to be a practice squadder. Just like I think he was either Army or Navy. He's one of the service schools, and just like an unbelievable receiving back, like through college. But he looks like he hasn't quite converted as yet in training camp. So I've already dropped him from some dynasty leagues where I took him like with the last pick. So yeah, I am interested by Jeremy Bernard's impact if he can like be the slot receiver as a designated role all season. He might not be out there in 2 wide receiver sets when, you know, they get big and heavy with Darnell and Freiermuth, but I think there's an opportunity there for him to get some work. So that could be a player of interest. And yeah, I just want to kind of see what Dunker does. I think he looks fabulous. I think that's a fun one to watch. And I can see him being like a social media darling if he does end up playing.
Yeah, definitely. I think we've said most. It's like they always like to look at the wide receivers and look at wide receiver. And I think even Wetjen could do something if there's a few injuries, because again, it's not a, you know, look at the depth. You're not like, oh, they're going to be like on the 3rd, 4th kind of a depth chart. They're currently listed in the 2nd, so you never know. They might get some games, maybe the return game and special teams that way. I was surprised with the Allard pick in the 3rd round, because what they've got, just what they've got in terms of like right now is 4th behind Mason Rudolph. I think had another good preseason. I think he went, it's like 13 or 13 or something crazy like that, just what Rudolph does. And it feels like the Pittsburgh fans love him. And then Will Howard, who they obviously drafted a few years ago as well, is 3rd. So I was surprised with the 3rd pick. Like, I don't mind, you always swing for quarterbacks, but it felt like being your 3rd pick was a bit rich for this Steelers team, which needs to do a lot more. Just with maybe they just thought they weren't getting Aaron Rodgers back, so we needed that 3rd quarterback. Who knows? But we'll see.
Yeah. It's a tough one, because I do generally, if you haven't got a quarterback in the future, it's always worth a gamble. But it did feel early on draft night, certainly. Did you need to take him there? But, you know, we could look silly in a few months' time when he's shining for the Steelers. We'll see. Let's see how Steelers will look in a few months' time. We'll have a look at their 2026 projections here. Over under, of course, it's 8.5 wins. What other number could it be for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Over is 11-10. Under is 5-7. So bookies are saying Mike McCarthy doesn't have Mike Tomlin's no lose streak. 8-5 to make the playoffs. No to miss the playoffs is 1-2. What are you feeling here, Joe?
Yeah, I've got them under. I think it's going to be the first losing. I can see again 7-8 wins. Just with the divisions they're playing. But obviously finishing first last year doesn't help in terms of who they've got playing against. They've got the Texans. They've got the AFC South. They've got Denver. They've got the Eagles. They've got the Patriots. I think they're the 3 teams. So that's it's not like a first. You know, it's not like you're playing the NFC South first. You know, the Bucks. I know they're playing the Bucks and the best of the NFC South. But when you're looking at in division, it's not like the ones to be like, that doesn't really matter. They're playing teams who probably still are the favourites to win that division, or certainly the favourites to get to the playoffs. So I think they might struggle, but I also wouldn't be surprised because the Steelers just win games, which I never expect them to do, and they're suddenly 6-6 going into the final few games. I think the first couple of games, again, I think it's very important for like Mike McCarthy and just, you know, the whole fans have got the home against the Falcons. I think that's a big game. If you lose that, then you're already on the back foot. That's one of the games, you know, they're the Patriots, they've got the Bengals at Browns on a Thursday night, which it feels like Browns always win a random game on a Thursday night. The Colts, Bucks, Saints, Browns again. You've got to think you've got to at least win 5 or 6 of them games because then they go into a stretch of Bengals, Eagles, Broncos, Texans, Jags, Ravens. And then at the end. So, but it'll be very Steelers to be like 3-3, but beat the Bengals, beat the Eagles, and that kind of weird stuff as they always do. But I feel like it is important. It's no longer Mike Tomlin that, you know, I don't think Mike McCarthy has that presence about him where you're like, oh, they're just going to win. They're going to win games they shouldn't win, and they're going to lose games they shouldn't lose. It felt like that was very Steeler-esque. I don't know if Mike McCarthy has that kind of. So I think they can't slip up, and they need a good start because I think if they win only 2 of first 8 weeks, then that's when the Boo Boys might come in and they might be doing some changes and trying some other team in another lost season. So, I don't think they got the Ravens twice. I hate when they do like week 15, week 8. Why not spread it out? But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, I have them at 7 wins, so I'm taking the under as well. And for them to get 10 wins, I think Aaron Rodgers is going to have one hell of a season. For them to end up with like 3 wins, it's just like, well, Aaron Rodgers isn't good, and you know, than on the other quarterbacks are. I think there's more chance of a bottom out than a Super Bowl push, certainly. So, yeah, I have 7-10, so I'm taking the under there. And again, I know where we're leaning on these, but let's just go through them to finish us off. Division 11-2, which I think is crazy short, but that tells you how I'm facing that one. Conference 25-1, Super Bowl 55-1. I'm passing on all of them. I think 11-2 is kind of short when you look at the Browns being 20-1. I think, an 80-1 or 10-1 would be more appropriate. But maybe I'm just wrong on the Steelers. I often am. So, are you passing on all these, Joe? Or you got a little tickle at 55-1?
No, I'll stay away from the conference and Super Bowl. The division one's always just tempting just because this division is it's always a weird division. It always feels like it always comes down to the last few weeks, and it's just who can hold the nerve. And usually it is the Steelers who hold the nerve and win the big games. But again, I was under Mike Tomlin, but I don't think they're going to do much. So I'll probably stay away from them. But that's the only one I would be tempted just because the Steelers do Steelers things.
And yeah, I mean, as I'm saying it, I am also saying out loud to myself, would it be that wild if Lamar Jackson missed the last 6 weeks of the season and Joe Burrow only played 10 games? No, maybe 11-2 is probably about fair then, if we look at it through that lens, because, seems kind of fair to do so. I believe that's all of our teams done, Joe, which takes us to our division bets, 7th episode of 8. Only a few more of these bets to do. Paul is not joining us. Obviously, he's crying about Mike Tomlin. So instead, he sent his bets over. He's going for Zay Flowers, 8+ TDs at 17-5. Zay Flowers, in his 3 years so far, has had 5, 4, and 5. But Isaiah Likely is out of town. Now got Declan Doyle, as we talked about with Alec earlier. Very excited about the Ravens' offense, which makes a lot of sense. I can see it. I think Zay Flowers is going to be a featured part of the offense. 8 isn't a huge number. 17-5, better than 3-1. Don't hate it. And the Browns have the worst regular season record at 4-1. Hard to argue too much with what we've just discussed with the Browns. Don't hate that one from Paul at all. It's me or you. I'm not sure who. Me. KC Concepcion, 750 plus receiving yards at 6-4. I couldn't find a big price that I loved on the player markets for this division. So, I think KC Concepcion, I think he's just going to get open all the time. And I'm going to figure out that he's going to figure out how to catch the ball. 750 isn't a huge number on a 17-game season. So 6-4 I kind of like. And then going in line with what we talked about from our team bet, Baltimore and Cincy to finish in the top 2, any order, even money. I don't like staking a huge amount of money down for an even money return on the season, but I really struggle. Like I've just said, I don't see the Steelers contending. This more is to me is a bet on can Joe Burrow and Lamar Jackson play 17 games apiece. If they do, I think this is a banker basically. So even money, Baltimore, Cincy, top 2 for me. And Joe, finish us off, please.
Yeah, so my player bet, I've got Chase and Higgins to both get 1,000 receiving yards. I'm fairly big on the Bengals this year. It's all to do with health. I think if Burrows can stay fit and both wide receivers, I think they hit this. I think Chase has never not had a 1,000-yard season. He's been his second year is 1,046 and he only played 12 games. So when he plays the full seasons, he's getting towards 1,500 each year. So I think Chase is fairly set. Higgins he got 2,000 years in 21 and 22. The last few years, he played 12 games, 15 games, and he's been around the 900. But if you're doing that with Joe Flacco and Jake Browning, you should hopefully be able to do that with Joe Burrow when he plays. So I think it's just him staying fit and Burrow staying fit, and they should be able to hit that. Because I even think if they get the running game going, which I mentioned earlier, I think Burrow's in his arm, he's still going to want to throw it down the field. And these two are, I think Chase is, him and Pook and Jefferson are probably fighting for the best wide receiver in the league. And I think Higgins is probably the clear best number 2 wide receiver in the league. So I think that's certainly on. And then my team one is Browns. I actually just like these, they just popped up on Bet365, so they have all these divisions. But I've got Browns under 1.5 division wins at 23-20. So again, close to evens. I just think the Browns, I think especially against the Bengals and Ravens, again, if they have their players, I think they should beat them teams. I know it's always a weird division where they end up beating each other and there's always weird ones. And I wouldn't be surprised if the Browns beat the Steelers on Thursday night. But they only play one Thursday night football against the Steelers. And that's when usually the Browns win 7-6 or something daft like that when it's AFC and it's cold and rainy. So only having one, that might be the only win. So probably similar to Paul, I think they're going to have a down year just with the quarterback and under 1.5 wins at 23-26, a nice price. So they're the 2 I've got.
Fantastic. Cheers, Joe. Thank you to Alec for doing our Ravens preview with us. No thanks to Paul this week, who did very little for us. See if you listen to the entire show. we will see you next week for our final division preview, AFC East. So we'll have the Bills, we'll have the Patriots, we'll have the Jets and the Dolphins, all the guys. They'll be joining us for that one. Please come back then to check us out on YouTube, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast. Give us a 5-star, give us a thumbs up, all those good things. Subscribe, and we will see you then. Cheers, guys.